When Russia attacked us back in 2014, Ukraine, under its constitution, was the country neutral without any plans to join NATO. But that did not protect us from attack of the Russian Federation. So whatever Putin is saying is actually just a blatant lie.
The aggressor should not be rewarded. It should be punished for violations of international law, for acts of aggression.
Putin crossed the point of no return long ago. No political agreement will stop his far-reaching plans.
We all just have to comprehend, unfortunately, the Third World War has already started.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Centre and NGO Euro-Atlantic Course. And I'm your host, Matt Wickham. And in this episode, we explore the critical political and military decisions the West must make as Ukraine valiantly continues to resist Russian aggression for almost 2 years now. Ukrainian MPs in this episode urge the West to recognize that this war extends far beyond Ukraine. Allowing Russia to prevail here risks the onset of a Third World War, if that Third World War hasn't yet already started. It's a call to action: support Ukraine now or prepare to deploy your own troops, akin to what happened in the Second World War. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and don't forget to press subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future. At the Munich Security Conference, Timothy Snyder encapsulated the situation succinctly, telling how, in many ways, it is a world war in which only one country is doing the resisting. In a strange way, because they have resisted so well, they are alone, he told. Our first guest, Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, People's Deputy of Ukraine and head of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Ukraine's integration into the European Union, highlighted Russia's aggression dating far back to at least 2008 when it attacked Georgia, and stating that even in 2014, Ukraine's constitution declared the country as a neutral country, Ukraine that is. She tells how Russia's whole history has been about fighting and conquering wars, so why would Putin be satisfied with just Ukraine? Plus, she emphasizes the need for a strong defense stance, akin to Thatcher and Reagan's approach. Let's take a listen.
When Russia attacked us back in 2014, Ukraine, under its constitution, was the country neutral without any plans to join NATO. But that did not protect us from attack of the Russian Federation. So whatever Putin is saying is actually just a blatant lie. And the whole history of Russian Empire and the Russian Federation in different times, different ages, is about fighting, conquering wars. So again, there is no point of calculating whether there is any chance and probability that Russia would attack NATO country. Because we have to remember, back in December 2021, Putin was very clear. He was sending the ultimatum about Ukraine, but then he was also referring to his vision that he wants to return back to the borders of early 90s in Europe. So ultimatum would come after ultimatum and after ultimatum if there is a satisfaction of any of the appetites of Mr. Putin and Kremlin. So the only way to defend your own national interest and to provide for your national security is to upscale the support to Ukrainians and help Ukraine to defeat Russian Federation on our soil. That will also save your lives of your citizens and your soldiers. But if you still have some doubts, try to think, what would other leaders of earlier times like Thatcher or Reagan or de Gaulle or Adenauer do? Would they try to negotiate with Hitler with Putin? Or they would try to actually provide Ukraine with all the possible weapons that it needs in order to defeat the enemy. Once again, Ukraine's victory is the only possibility for Western nations to provide for their own national security. And this is pure logic, and this is pure self-preservation instinct. Who woke up whose sides if not Putin? And that is a direct threat to trade routes. If Russia succeeds, why wouldn't China try to attack Taiwan? And that's another direct threat to many national interests of the Western countries, because Taiwan is a major producer of microchips. I think there is no point of trying to calculate whether there is any probability of Russia attacking NATO. We all just have to comprehend, unfortunately, the Third World War has already started. And we don't have to make up anything, because Putin, by persuading himself that Ukraine does not exist, is trying to persuade the whole world that he is on the territory of Ukraine, fighting with the whole Western civilized community.
The seasoned Ukrainian politician emphasizes that despite now we are hearing more increased calls for negotiations with Putin, Putin has never wanted to negotiate. They have historically proven ineffective. Ukraine has attempted negotiations with Putin since 2008. Plus, Ivanna comments on the Tucker Carlson interview. Let's listen.
We are hearing more and more voices lately that are trying to suggest negotiating with Putin. But let me underline, this different type of negotiations with Russia have been held since 2008, since the attack on Georgia. And by the way, Hitler was also appeased before the Second World War. But what it brought to Europe and what it brought to the whole Western world, it brought both war and shame. So right now, many are also trying to say, well, there is a very slim chance that Putin would try to attack any of the NATO countries. But actually, this chance does exist. And Russian Federation has already proven many times that it can act irrationally. So what would preclude it from acting so again and again? We just recently watched this interview of Putin to Tucker Carlson, where this 21st century Hitler is trying to explain his attack on independent sovereign nation by some pseudo-historical analysis and non-existing NATO threat. He went so far to actually even justify Hitler's attack over Poland during the Second World War. Let me remind you, Alaska and part of California also once belonged to Russian Federation. Many territories of many sovereign states in European Union, in NATO, like parts of Finland, Poland, Baltics, have also at different stages belonged to Russian Federation. So why would not they decide to organize some provocation and return something that they believe is theirs?
Allowing authoritarian states free rein only emboldens them further, tells Ivanna. In World War II, the belief that the conflict was distant fostered complacency. However, this mindset ultimately required citizens, including Americans and Canadians, to eventually fight. Ivanna warns not to let that happen again.
Let's try to address the question why the support to Ukraine is important for the national security of the Western states, not even from the point of view of geopolitics or defense of Western values. Let's try to address it from the perspective of pure logic and simple self-preservation instinct. From my perspective, the whole state of the Western societies in terms of security after the Second World War can be defined as poisoned by security. Almost 4 generations without war. Definitely thriving economy, thriving possibilities. Communism has been defeated in the Cold War. The military expenses have been seriously cut. The military personnel, the numbers have been seriously diminished. Terrorism has been defined as major threat and enemy. And nobody really tried to think of any potential preparation for even defensive fight. At the same time, autocracies and dictatorships are never asking for any permissions. And what we see that Russian Federation basically back in 2008 starts its crusade against Western world. It attacks Georgia in 2008. It attacks and annexes parts of Ukraine in 2014 and goes on for starting a full-scale invasion against Ukraine in 2022. And that has to be an explanation that the more you tolerate the autocracies, the more you allow them, the more impudent they become. Back in late 30s, in the beginning of 40s, when the Second World War started, there was also very similar type of thinking that the war is somewhere far away, even though right now European nations do understand that the war is ongoing on their doorstep. But many in the US and Canada think, well, it's so far away. But that type of understanding and that type of thinking back before or during already the Second World War also led to the situation when not only money and not only weaponry was needed to push back on the evil. Later on, both Americans and Canadians had to start fighting also with the lives of their soldiers.
Our next guest, Oleksandr Merezhko, member of the Parliament of Ukraine, tells why the aggressor should never be awarded and why the West and the whole of the civilized world should support Ukraine.
The answer to this question from Ukrainian perspective is rather obvious, but seems like in the West sometimes we have to explain to societies and to politicians why it is worthwhile to provide aid to Ukraine. There are lots of reasons to do it. First of all, on the moral grounds. The truth is that Ukraine is committing a crime of genocide against Ukrainian nation. Its goal is to erase us completely from the political map of the world and to destroy our identity. To prevent it, to save the people of Ukraine from genocide, we need support of the whole world. First of all, from democratic states. There are also legal grounds, legal reasons to defend Ukraine, because it's not only about Ukraine, it's about international legal order. It's about international law. The aggressor should not be rewarded. It should be punished for violations of international law, for acts of aggression. There are also political reasons to support Ukraine, because when aggressor is not punished, it emboldens, encourages other potential aggressors to do the same in other regions of the world. And I truly hope that you understand the importance to provide aid to Ukraine. It's our chance to stop Russian Empire, to defeat Russian Empire on the soil of Ukraine and prevent it from continuing its imperialistic expansion and its aggression with regard to NATO member states, which will lead to escalation of the global conflict.
Danylo Lubkivsky, director of the Kyiv Security Forum, tells how Putin has crossed the point of no return and no political agreement can halt his ambitions. Plus, of his own 3 conclusions he has made and drawn from the war thus far.
Putin has heavily invested in Russia's war against Ukraine and more generally against the West. There should be no illusion that some sort of political appeasement, or I better say capitulation, can redirect the processes back to the previous normality or business as usual. Putin crossed the point of no return long ago. No political agreement will stop his far-reaching plans. Even more, it will increase his appetite and set an example to follow by his descendants and many other small or big dictators who would eventually try to copycat the way of doing things. Dialogue is not a Putin's choice and will never be. As soon as this understanding prevails, it will be much easier to accept new reality and elaborate practical methods of dealing with the permanent Russia's threat. There are three conclusions to be drawn. First, no time can be wasted. Time is the most precious asset. Putin acts quickly. After the shameful failure in 2022, he managed to regroup his forces and strengthen the offensive. He has clearly shown of having no intentions to step back. Second, their mindset should be changed. This is not Ukraine's war. This is a war in Europe. The impact of this war is felt all over the West, and there is no way to escape its severe reality. It should be met with mature responsibility. The bravery of the Ukrainian armed forces gave the Western politicians 2 vital years to get better prepared and make the right choices. Third, every effort should be streamlined at diminishing the military might of Russia and its potential to continue or repeat the aggression. It means that there is no room for any slightest compromise with the collective security. No argument, no hesitation, no self-doubt should undermine the defensive priorities. The exhaustive delivery of weapons to Ukrainians, sanctions, use of Russia's frozen assets in Ukraine's interests, and the broadest international solidarity. All of these tasks must be taken with exceptional accuracy and seriousness.
You've been watching the special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find more information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!